Mr. Gray is a very quiet, shy, and unassuming person that does not draw attention to himself. And I think that would be your initial impression.
John does great things very quietly. We used to joke here at the company that if you walked into a room full of men, John would be the last one you would suspect of having anything.
He's very bright, and he never forgets anything.
I think I'd use a single word to start with, which is gentleman.
Totally honest. There's not a man around more honest than Mr. Gray.
That he's a nice guy. And that's what most people say. They're always amazed when they meet him that he is so nice. I'm not sure what they're expecting, but...
Well, I don't like that publicity. I try to be quiet about things, and I don't need the attention. It's not going to change my lifestyle at all. I'm not. It's just the way I am.
And he says it himself. He didn't know he was poor when he was growing up because everybody around him, nobody else had anything.
He died when I was in the first grade. My mother had taught school before marriage, so she came back to Corvallis with her parents after the auction, after my father died. And then she got a job south of Corvallis, teaching school in a one-room grade school. There's a farmer's a tenant house. They paid $2.50 a month rent for that house for about 11 years. No insulation, single wall, outdoor john. But, you know, we were warm, we were dry, never hungry.
He told me when he went to work after going to Oregon State and before entering the military service during World War II, he had to borrow against his first paycheck to make the deposit on a tiny apartment that he needed to give to his landlord. But that was Mr. Gray. He made commitments.
We met at Oregon State in a ballroom dancing class. When I was a senior, she was a freshman. And then I left, went to the Army. Then she went to graduate school back at Columbia. And so we got married about 4 or 5 days after I got home from overseas in early 1946. I applied both to Stanford and to Harvard, was admitted to both schools. I could get through at the Harvard Business School quicker than I could at Stanford, so I chose Harvard. And that was why I did it. Then we didn't have much furniture. I think that didn't last long, but we found a chair someplace.
You couldn't help but admire John with his enthusiasm, the way he created opportunities here. Everybody has always felt like it was their own company. John just had a way of making you feel that way.
We had a little beach house in the lake, which is now part of Lincoln City, and we would sometimes picnic down on this land, which became Salishan.
We spent a lot of time in Lincoln City and prior to the building of Salishan, and then also the building of Salishan. So for us, that building project, some of my first memories of it were walking across kind of the estuary or the marshland to get from 101 out to the beach. For those of us who know the golf course now, it'd be walking down the 10th and 12th fairway, but back then nobody could see a golf course there. It was almost not quite mud flat, but it was an adventure, another hiking adventure like we always had with him.
I don't know. I was always interested in, you know, nice places and seeing good design. I didn't have any background in it. That I was fortunate in choosing good architects, good designers to work with.
He certainly, during the building of Salishan, accepted John Stohr's persona, which was very often pretty much in your face. He was a very often outrageous and fully charismatic person, but was somewhat challenging, I'm sure, to work with, and I'm sure challenging for John Gray to work with. The thing that John Stohr's most appreciated about his professional interaction with John Gray was just that John Gray allowed him to develop Salishan really as he wanted to. So Salishan would not be anything that it was and is without John Gray's support.
He always loved cutting paths, and he still loves to prune.
If you are familiar, as most people are, with Salishan, there is the marketplace, which is on the west side of Highway 101. And there used to be fairly dense bushes creating a border between the marketplace and Highway 101.
So his idea of a great Saturday afternoon would be to go out in the woods in back of our house and cut some new path through the Oregon grape and whatever else was growing there.
And I got a call from one of the merchants down at the marketplace, and they said, "Hey, there's a guy down here cutting down brush along Highway 101, and he says his name is John, and he owns the place. Is it okay?" And at that moment, as my head hit the desk, as I was losing consciousness, slipping under the desk, I said, "Yes, that's quite all right. He indeed is the owner."
I think the guy's a frustrated architect. I've always thought that. Absolutely. He loves the idea of building things, but his heart is really in the physical art and architectural world. That's just me. I don't, you know, he may disagree, but I'll stick to what I said.
A number of us thought, wow, you know, that's way over there in the boonies. Will this thing ever work? You know, this is how John, you know, sees the future and is willing to go in and take advantage of it.
The old lodge was still there. It was a Corps of Engineers training camp. So we kind of thought about it. Well, it was, if we develop it, it's 15 miles or so south of Bend. Will people come or not? They did.
Now, I think John's Landing was a fabulous project in terms of reclaiming the river, but it never got realized, I think, even to what his vision was, which was this fabulous master plan of 70 acres that was, in some respects, before its time. I don't know what his feelings are about it, but I think the vision that he had for this as a master plan was quite exciting, especially for somebody coming out of school.
You know, I got started in the Pearl District by meeting with John in his office at OMARC, and I remember him saying, "Al, do you have any ideas?" And I said, "John, I do have an idea." Described it to him, and he said, "That sounds like a good idea," and we did it. And that basically started my career in the Pearl District.
Nobody was trying to make a resort per se. We wanted to make a really nice meeting facility. And, you know, Mr. Gray's attitude is, let's just do the best with the tools we have. We've got a budget and we've got a program, and let's just do the best job we can. And, you know, he just executed the details. And you execute enough details really well, pretty soon you've got a fairly incredible facility. But his approach to me, and you know, he hasn't told me this or anything, but his approach is kind of, if you really do a good job with your details and pay attention to your business, and the rest will follow. I don't think he doesn't start up here, he starts more down here.
And I would bet if you asked him the question of the things that were most important to him as he looked at those developments, that making a profit would be fairly far down on the list. I think he cared about the sense of design. I think he cared about the sense of place. I believe he cares about the quality of construction.
Betty and John as a team were terrific in terms of the way that they would stimulate each other's thinking about how to make a difference in the community. I think they also believed strongly in their children getting involved in philanthropy too. So it wasn't just giving money, it was the whole family getting involved in community service.
They both felt strongly that you give back to the community that you live in. And I think that's something that was a shared parenting ethic of the two of them.
And I think it's incumbent upon a number of us who have been around and have been the beneficiaries of the Mr. Grays to step up and do some of the similar things that they have done. I think our time is now.
John's given away tens of millions of dollars for this state, and he would rank dollar-wise right at the top in terms of philanthropic contributions to this state.
He sees a need, he fills it, he does it quietly. And you know, I've worked with just the opposite people who want to be recognized for everything. John is not that way.
Today, there are too many self-promoters. Politicians, businessmen, whatever. There are too many people where everything is about them. Mr. Gray has never brought attention to himself. And the greatest thing about any award that Mr. Gray gets is that it is given by people who respect him. And that's the greatest award to be given. And so the only thing I would ask Mr. Gray is that he accept it in the spirit of people who he admires, that is, architects, but they are honoring him.